Hello, I'm Chrissy Seaton. You know, placing a stumbling block before the blind is a really despicable or grave act for anyone to do. And we look at Leviticus chapter 9, verse 14, and there is a verse that discusses this, and I urge you all to go and take a look at that verse. So, placing the stumbling block before the blind or an uninformed person is not the right thing to do, certainly not the right thing for a Noahide person to do. And here the blind refers to not only the person who is literally blind, but also to people who may be undiscerning, who may genuinely need advice, etc., or may just not understand something. So, in other words, we're not to take advantage of anyone in anything we do. We have to be honest in all our dealings and advice and interaction with other people. And as a Noahide, that is something that we must be continually vigilant about. And so I'd like to talk a little bit more about that in this video. So how does this Bible verse relate more broadly in terms of Noahides and the world we live in today? So I'm going to try to give some information about that. There's things we need to consider. For instance, someone comes and is seeking your advice about a particular topic. Now, first of all, why is that person asking you? Perhaps it's because that person believes you are knowledgeable about the topic, or you are a good, honest person. There's many reasons why that person would seek your advice. So, first of all, before answering that, you must contemplate this a little. In other words, you've just got to spend a minute before you jump in with all manner of advice and words and examples, etc. You really need to establish exactly what it is that the person is asking you. So they might have asked you a question to elicit your advice. You need to really repeat that back to them and make sure that that is actually what they're asking you. So get that straight and confirmed first. Then what you need to think about is this advice or conversation I'm going to have with this person appropriate? For instance, is the topic appropriate for you to speak to this person about? Now, there are many reasons why it might not be, and I won't go into those, but if you use your imagination, I'm sure you can come up with some answers to that. There are just some things that people ask you about. It's not appropriate for you to answer that or give advice, and you need to say that and just say, I'm sorry, but it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment further on that. What you need to do is also say to yourself, can I be objective in this advice I'm giving this person, or am I just giving them an opinion? And there's a big difference between objective information, factual information, as compared to, well, in my humble opinion, this is what I think. So the other thing to consider is that if you're going to continue and give them this advice, is that advice going to be any way detrimental to the person? And if it is, you really shouldn't go ahead and give that advice. If you can see that there may be a possibility that that person will take your advice and it'll be to the detriment of that person or perhaps society in general. So you need to think more than twice about this. The other thing for you as the advisor, you need to consider, could your advice in any way be misleading, or could it somehow be misinterpreted, or could it even be a lie? And you have to really be honest with yourself about this. So, is the person seeking your advice also capable? I repeat that. Is the person who's asking your advice capable of understanding what you have said and explained to them? Now, that means, do they have the cognitive or intellectual or communicative ability to grasp what it is that you're actually advising them, to actually understand it in the context that you have given it? So let me just give you a little example there. If there is someone in your community or family who is affected, unfortunately, with Alzheimer's, they're suffering at degrees of dementia, you would be very, very careful if they came and asked your advice about something. You would need to really consider how you answered that, because it could be like a loaded shotgun in a way. So you must discern in your mind whether the objective answer that you can give is actually going to be grasped and understood in an intelligent and sensible manner. The other thing that I want to touch on here also is that it's not only just on advice that you're giving people, but that Bible passage really refers to a broad scope of things that we as Noahides come upon daily or experience daily. And one example I'd like to mention is that, let's suppose you're a tradesman and you might be a plumber, and you're at a barbecue, and of course, everyone wants to know all the ins and outs of, how they can fix their own water system or what have you. But let's suppose that somebody comes up that you don't know terribly well, but they say, oh, Bob over there tells me you're a plumber. We're wanting to put in a new bathroom, blah, 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 blah. And you think, well, they live only a few streets away from me. Now, they ask you to put in a quote. Is your quote honest? Are you over-quoting over and beyond what is the experience that you have as a tradesman, as a plumber, in determining how much that will cost, how long that will take to do the job? I mean, if you're in that industry of being a tradesperson, you know things that the customer doesn't. So even over-quoting or over-exaggerating some of the time frames, etc., that is really putting a stumbling block in front of the naive, and it's not honest. Perhaps someone's asking you on advice about buying a car, and you happen to own the car dealership. So you're certainly going to be the one who has the advantage in the advice you give. So one should guard their advice very closely. You can be have the upper hand when it comes to giving people advice that will be to their disadvantage, but certainly will be to your advantage, and more often than not, it's going to line your pockets nicely. So you must be conscious of these things. The other thing that I would like to mention also is that there are ethical and professional standards that you have to consider very closely when you're considering giving advice to anyone. And I just want to give you a couple of examples of that as well. So I can speak from experience that I've had as a nurse, and someone may come up to you because they know you're a nurse. They say, well, ask Chrissy about this. And, it could be something really simple, that the child's been bitten with a mosquito, and, it's common sense sort of thing. that you would tell any friend, put, some warm water on it and it will take away the itchiness, etc. But let's just suppose someone comes to you and says, look, Chrissy, I've been seeing Dr. So-and-so down the road and he tells me I've got high blood pressure and my cholesterol's up and he's put me on a regime of medications and a diet, etc. But look, I've been reading about alternative medicine and I read somewhere where if I buy walnuts and crush up the shells of walnuts, that will lower my cholesterol, and so that'll also lower my blood pressure. And I'm wondering what your opinion is. Now, of course, the first thing I would want to say is you're not very wise to follow that advice at all. But I would be very careful and I would say until you are advised otherwise by your doctor, you must continue on the medication that he has prescribed, and certainly don't start taking alternative medications until you have discussed that fully with him. Now, the reason I bring that up under ethical and professional standards, because I could say, oh, yes, it might be all right. It was printed in the daily magazine. Yes, give it a go. Well, then they can go back and say to the doctor, oh, Chrissy's a nurse and she told me to throw all the medication out the window and just, take this crushed walnut seeds. Well, you can imagine that would come back to bite me and my reputation. Not that I would ever do anything like that or I would believe it, but that's just a graphic example of how you must be careful about ethics and standards. So my advice has always been to particularly my nursing students and my family is never say, write or do anything that you are not prepared to defend in a court of law. And that applies equally as much so to just giving what you think is friendly advice to people at times. And you need to discern whether the question the person's asking you or the advice they're asking from you, is it loaded? So it's a two-way street too. Is this person asking me a loaded question? And I need to be very careful how I answer this. So it's about also protecting your reputation and also, certainly when it's appropriate, giving the correct advice and information to someone. So it is a great responsibility, giving advice, and you need to always be alert and to be wise in how you do that. I'd just like to thank you all for watching my video, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, press the bell to be notified, leave a comment, press the like button, and always remember that God is watching and listening 24/7. Please take care, and God bless you all till next time.